great pleasure to be here. Once again, I sense my hero, Robert Jackson, standing next to me. It still gives me chills to tell you this, is that when the Chief Judge turned to me and said, "Mr. Prosecutor, your opening statement." And this is a moment where a prosecutor isn't telling the judges what took place. They kind of have a sense of what has happened. I mean, obviously, they didn't fall off the turnip truck, plus there's a lot of motion practice going on. So they have a sense. What you do in an opening statement, and I'm sure Robert Jackson did the same thing, is you want to tell a story to the people of the world of why we are here, why we are doing this. And also, and this is just as important, in fact, very important, you are the voice of the victims of the horror that took place in Europe or in West Africa. It doesn't matter, because the pain and suffering is just the same. And so you have an obligation to seek justice and to tell the world their story, because they have disappeared into the sands of time. And so when you walk up to that podium, it looks just like this, and you open your statement and you put your hands just like this. I actually felt the great man's hand on my left shoulder as I began. Your Honors, good morning. And then I began to give my opening statement.
One special applause to the press of Mr. David Green, presents his opening statement.
May it please this chamber, Your Honors, on this solemn occasion, mankind is once again assembled before an international tribunal to begin the sober and steady climb upwards toward the towering summit of justice. The path will be strewn with the bones of the dead, the moans of the mutilated, the cries of agony of the tortured, echoing down into the valley of death below. Horrors beyond the imagination will slide into this hallowed hall as this trek upward comes to a most certain and just conclusion.
So I just want to leave you with that thought, because again, the spirit of Robert Jackson continues. It started here, literally, physically, in Warren County, Pennsylvania, but it worked its way through up north to Jamestown, New York, and then spread towards Albany, and then down to Washington, D.C. He was a remarkable man. He was, in my mind, the quintessential American lawyer. He is why we become lawyers. He is why we cherish the law. He is why we are American. Here he is, Warren County, Jamestown, New York, and he becomes the Solicitor General, the Attorney General of the United States. And one would probably say that's pretty good. I'll take it. But then he becomes an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. And then, to the detriment of his career, because he is concerned about this, because what he wants to be, and you've read the history, he wants to become the Chief Justice of the United States. And he was actually pretty much the front runner. And yet, he was called upon by Harry Truman to become the Chief American Prosecutor at the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg. That's a special moment, because I had that special moment as well. International criminal case, not only is it there's no glamour to it, and there's nothing mythical about it, it's just good, solid lawyering. All right, the same kind of law that you learned in criminal law, all right, the same things you see on television. You got facts, you got law, you got elements of a crime, and you start proving it one element at a time. The evidence. And he also was talking, well, what happened to you? And he's describing how his hands were cut off. And he looks over at the defendants, and he points his stub, and he goes, "You did this to me." And to see those leadership of the RUF drop their eyes in shame, that's justice, isn't it?
That's justice. This little man from a little place somewhere up north in Sierra Leone, whose family is no longer with him. He's missing both his hands. And to sit there and look at these individuals who are the battle group commanders of the RUF and point to them and look them straight in the eye and say, "You did this to me," and watch their faces drop. I'm thinking, you know, I suddenly realize why I'm here. And that's why Robert Jackson felt in various times why he was here and his wonderful team. They were all convicted as charged and are serving sentences between 45 to 52 years. And you're thinking, what? Did you just... I mean, we put to, frankly, we put to death someone who kills one human being. But these are individuals who killed tens of thousands and did various things to it. Well, at the international level, as an aside, there's no death penalty. So they are sentenced to whatever the trier of fact feels, and they can appeal it, of course, to the appellate chamber. And I'll talk a little bit about the organization just quickly in a minute. But it's hard time. There's no such thing as parole, time off for good behavior, clemency, or what have you. Once the appellate chamber reviews it, make sure that it's appropriate, they are sentenced. And so 52 years is 52 years. There it is. Justice is done. So all of these individuals are prosecuted and found guilty. Now, one of the things that I wanted to leave with the Sierra Leonean people throughout all this process, okay, and then with all this dust swirling around, and with all this pain and suffering, with all of the challenges my people had, their health, their families, just living to the end of the day security-wise. One of the things, or the three things I told the people of Sierra Leone I wanted them to understand, and that is, the law is fair, no one is above the law, and the rule of law, that's three, is more powerful than the rule of the gun. Just remember those three things. And this is the legacy that Robert Jackson left us. The law, the courage, the way forward, the bright and shining light. And as Henry King maybe even did here, because he did it a lot, he'd pound the table. The spirit of Nuremberg lives. And I'm here to tell you, folks, the spirit of Nuremberg lives. I'll finish up, and then whatever time they allow me to be with you, I'll tell you the story. I walked the countryside, like I said, and there was a particular school in Freetown itself that I visited quarterly. And it was the Milton Margai School of the Blind. And they were a wonderful group, and I visited them for 3 years. Of course, Uncle Dave, as they called me, would always bring Coke and candies and stuff like that. And we would sit there and I'd pass it out, and they'd be munching away and drinking Cokes. You know, they're blind, but they certainly like candy. But they had also a wonderful choir that actually sang for the Queen of England in Westminster Abbey. But we're talking, hey, how are you doing? How are things? Have you been reading about the special court or hearing about the special court? How do you think we're doing? I mean, these are just kids between about 7 years old to about 18. And we talked for about 45 minutes or so. And the last time I went to visit them, it was just a couple days before I left in June of 2005. I visited them to say goodbye. And so we, excuse me, we did our thing, and then the headmaster said, we have to say goodbye to Uncle Dave. And they said goodbye, and then they all stood up and they sang a song. Excuse me, I've never done this before like this. They sang a beautiful song called It's a Small World, After All. So with that, I leave you with my thoughts about the spirit of Nuremberg. It does live, and it lives today. Thank you very much.